Sabaidi, Najong. Welcome back, Sabscribers. It's me, Sab, with another episode of Suffering of Silence. So today's episode's going to be a little different. The video episode, at least, would be formatted very differently today. I wanted to take some time to share, a little get ready with me and share parts of how I get dressed and how I get ready to put on my traditional clothes, it's typically for the temple or for, special occasions and events, which I don't really go to a lot of, as I am showcasing, the way that I get ready and the way I get dressed in my traditional clothing. I wanted to share some thoughts and give you guys some insight on my relationship with my femininity and just in general, how I've struggled with my relationship with my femininity and my womanhood. The way that I'm putting on my traditional clothes in this video is not exactly the way that I would typically put my traditional clothes on. I skip a few steps, small details, small things like some of the jewelry, some of the accessories. I wanted to just give a generalization of what it looks like. I wish I could eloquently share with you all with the most beautiful words and the most beautiful phrases. I wish I could say that the way I'm going to share these experiences and these stories were in a beautiful way. But this is just my way. I hope that you guys enjoy what I have to share. Getting ready in general, not just in my traditional clothing, not just in my beautiful sin and my beautiful textiles and patterns and fabrics that I wear from my cultural history and background. The relationship that I have with getting ready, the relationship that I have with beauty standards, the relationship that I have with finding what makes me comfortable in my femininity has been one of the most major struggles that I've had in my lifetime. To some people, that may not mean too much, or to some people, that may not necessarily be something that should affect you so much. But for me, I've noticed that my toxic relationship with my femininity and my womanhood has affected every aspect of my life, every relationship that I have, whether it's romantic, friendships, family. It has made my interactions with the world just that much more difficult. I wish I could say that I believe it will improve drastically, but I know it takes work, it takes time, it takes years of unlearning. Throughout my lifetime, if I can recall how difficult and strained the relationship I had with my womanhood, the easiest way I can explain is to maybe give you some visualization and describe to you what it was like growing up the way that I grew up, and helping you understand the dynamic that I have with my mother, helping you understand the dynamic I have with my siblings, my family. Maybe it'll help you understand more about me, I guess. And I know I'm not alone in feeling the way that I do, and I know that I'm not alone in some of the experiences that I have with my femininity and with my toxic relationship with being a woman. One of the most difficult wounds that I have had to overcome and have yet to truly overcome is my mother wound. I think that in having these unconventional conversations that I have on my podcast, it is not to shame or spew any level of hatred or resentment towards anyone who has hurt me in my life. Although many people may feel like they deserve that, or maybe people just feel like they shouldn't even be brought up in conversation. But to pretend that those are not things that have happened in my life would not be fair to myself, would not be fair to my highest potential. Because in order to heal, I must love every part of me unconditionally. When I speak on my mother and my relationship with her. I don't want to hate her. I don't want to resent her. I want to help understand why my relationship continues to be very difficult, why my relationship with other women continue to be difficult, why I still have complications with feeling like I can fully embrace my womanhood and my femininity. Growing up, I was never allowed to express myself in a feminine way. I was never allowed to experience and explore makeup or girly clothing like dresses. I know those are external things that don't completely define who you are. Those are not things that define you as a woman. That's not what makes you a good person. But having learned more about myself and having learned how to love myself and embrace my womanhood and my femininity, I have learned that those are things that I find important. Those are things that I prioritize now because they are what makes me feel like I am taking the time to take care of myself. Getting my nails done, taking time to have a skincare routine, taking the time to do my hair, taking the time to do my makeup, taking the time to pick out clothes that I feel comfortable wearing. Those are things that I enjoy doing. Those are things that make me feel more connected to myself. And I don't believe that there's anything wrong with finding value in those things. But I also understand that that's not what makes me who I am. Those are not substantial things that make me who I am. But growing up, having been shamed for enjoying makeup, having been shamed for wanting to do my hair, having shame for wanting to get my nails done, having shame for expressing myself in the way that I look, those are things that I've had to very much unlearn as I've grown older. I've always had a very strained relationship, especially with makeup, because that was a major thing that was essentially not allowed in my home growing up. And it may sound silly to a lot of people, but the way my hair looks is something that I've always found importance in. I think that was always the only thing that I could actually be a little bit more expressive with, and I could do that at a younger age, at an earlier time in my life. I remember being 3 or 4, and so I'm gonna go off track a little bit here. So when I was younger, my parents always made music an important part of my life. We used to have weekly family karaoke nights. It was usually always every Friday night. It was the one night my parents actually took time to spend together. And I remember being in the living room with them, and my dad would always buy some new karaoke equipment somehow, some way. One of my favorite things to do was to sing and listen to music with my parents. I had this favorite singer. She's a Lao singer. Her name is Gintala, and oh my god, I loved her. I loved her down. I would idolize her. I wanted to cut my hair just like hers. She had that bob cut right on the chin with the straight Asian bangs. I was allowed to get that. So I remember asking for that haircut when I was about 3 or 4. I remember that was the thing for me. That was my iconic look because of Gintala. And then things started to change a little bit as I got a little bit older and I got a little bit closer to my sister. And my sister has always had very long hair throughout her entire life. She's had hair all the way past her waist. So it actually made me want to grow my hair out. I was maybe 6 or 7 at this point when I was finally able to start growing my hair back out. The difficulties of having long hair as a kid is that you have to know how to take care of your hair. And obviously I didn't know how to take care of my hair because I was a child. I learned how to, it took some time, but eventually I caught on. I remember there was this one morning where my dad had to help me get ready for school, and he was doing my hair, and he had to tie my hair up in a ponytail. The way that he did it, he used a regular rubber band, and that really hurt my hair. That really hurt my fucking head. But it was the effort. I could never blame him for that. I will always appreciate him for that. And I'm forever grateful that I got to experience that with him and I could actually remember those things with him. As I got older, I think the first time I ever dyed my hair, I was probably in the 5th grade. We still live next to this Walgreens. I would walk to Walgreens every single week with my cousins because I would be looking for the J14 and Word Up magazines to get all the Chris Brown posters out of them. I would also buy hair dye, box dye. And obviously my parents knew nothing about it till I dyed my hair. At this point, I think this is when I started to have more curiosity with makeup. And of course, all of my siblings are older than me. It's like watching my siblings and seeing them do their hair, do their makeup. It just made me curious and made me want to do those things as well. Rather than having those healthy connections with and communication, I guess, about hair and makeup, I was always just shut down for having those curiosities and wanting to explore those things. I, of course, approach the situation with compassion now because I do understand that my parents were just doing what they thought was best for me. But I believe personally that having open dialogue with your children about their curiosity is just as important as telling them that there are boundaries that they cannot cross. And I think standing at that time that those were just not decisions or interests that I should have and it just wasn't appropriate for myself at that age. Having those conversations probably would have been a lot more beneficial to me growing as a person and becoming an adult. I just remember growing up a lot that makeup was just never, I don't think I could ever remember any time that my mom actually really wore makeup or anytime she actually really expressed herself in a very feminine way. I believe the reason that I talk about hair, makeup, nails is because to me, those things also tie in a lot with how I view my mother and how she's extremely afraid to be feminine and how she perceives femininity as a sign of weakness. Hair, makeup, nails are all external things, and those are not necessarily what defines you and what makes you a feminine woman, but those are things that I find interest in, and those are my ways of expressing myself in my womanhood and my femininity. Growing up, not seeing my mother express herself in that way, and also a lot of the values and the things she instills in my mind are so black and white. They don't necessarily allow for room to be curious. I wasn't allowed to wonder if I could. I just was never given the opportunity to know if I could ever feel comfortable with wearing makeup, doing my hair, getting my nails done, more feminine. I remember very early on being uncomfortable with the thought that I can comfortably be feminine or girly. I grew to have discomfort in that very quickly. And I began wearing baggy clothes, being more tomboyish very early on in my childhood. I can still remember that day when I made that decision. I think I was like 6 years old. We were in the backyard and I don't know what it was. I can't even recall what might have happened, but I just remember deciding from that moment on that I no longer cared to wear dresses anymore. I no longer cared to be a girly girl. I don't care about doing my hair. I no longer cared about those things that allowed me to express myself more feminine. Because I believed in my mind that it wasn't okay, that it wasn't something I should be comfortable with. Maybe a lot of that has to do with some of the sexual trauma that I experienced very early in my life. My discomfort with being a girl or expressing myself in a feminine way was because I partly blamed myself for what happened to me as a child. Those are obviously things that my parents didn't actually know was going on for me because I never told them or anyone until I was much older as an adult. There are so many things that I believe have happened to me over my life, and so many impactful moments that have instilled in me that maybe it's not okay to wear makeup. Maybe it's not okay to wear certain type of clothing. Maybe it's not okay to style my hair a certain way to make myself more attractive to the male species. In combination to the sexual trauma that I experienced, I also believe that the values that my mother instilled in me, those in combination with each other, resulted in a very toxic relationship with me and my womanhood. I also know that growing up, it was very difficult for me to find comfort in being myself around my mom. I can think as far back, as I said, the 5th grade, when I started having those curiosities and wanting to learn how to do my makeup, how to do my hair, how to be more feminine in the most appropriate ways for my age, but never being given the guidance or the space to even allow myself to do that. I found my own ways. I dyed my hair behind their back. If I wore makeup, I wore it when they weren't around. That was probably the start of my rebellion. After I dyed my hair for the first time, there was no stopping me. I started to dedicate a lot of my time learning how to do hair, how to dye hair, how to cut my hair, what hairstyles I might like. I think in the 7th grade, I cut my hair into a bob. Well, actually, I don't know how I had the money, but I went to the hairstylist and I had her cut my hair into a bob. And then I got the 2 front money pieces. I thought it was so cool back then. And I remember going into high school, I had really long hair, way past my waist. One day I just randomly decided after freshman year that I wanted to chop it all off and start over. And from that, I let it grow out. Then I shaved the side of my head, dog. That's crazy. I think we all might have went through that phase. After I shaved my head, I dyed it bright red, like Ronald McDonald red. Then after that, I let it grow out for a little bit. And then I did a pixie. And that was the start of a pixie phase. I had been on and off with a pixie phase for the last damn near 10 years now. Over 10 years now. I've always been able to openly express myself more with my hair. I feel like that's always a little bit more acceptable in society, to have a crazy hair color or a crazy haircut. That's always more socially accepted than, I don't know, I guess tattoos, piercings. And I feel like that was the one thing I had less fear of changing. And my relationship with makeup has always been very difficult. I don't know why, but for some reason, a lot of what was instilled in me by my mother was valuing the way you look with makeup. It just wasn't something that was ever prioritized. Or I feel that there was always a lot of shame brought upon women who wore makeup, in my household at least. I never thought that it was something that would ever make me feel more enhanced in my beauty. I think in the last year or so, I have grown to love it more, and I've built a healthier bond with it. I did go through a phase freshman year of high school when I used to wear the crazy dark eyeliner. I guess some people would have considered that my alt phase. I had crazy dark eyeliner, and I remember being called the weird kids one day. And after that, I changed my makeup and actually stopped wearing makeup altogether. As I've grown older and gone into these toxic relationships with these men, I built another unhealthy relationship with makeup, especially with my abusive ex. He would shame me when I would want to wear makeup and accuse me of trying to look good for someone else, rather than understanding that me wearing makeup is for myself and it's to make me feel even more beautiful. His comments and his manipulation obviously did not help me have any stronger or a better and healthier relationship with makeup or with my appearance in general. Now that I'm here, my late 20s, I'm learning to love makeup again. I'm learning to have a healthier relationship with makeup again. And my hair is still just as crazy and just as expressive of myself. And I know people wear their heart on their sleeves. I wear my personality in my hair. And you've probably heard this a million times, but my tattoos are also a representation of me and who I am. It's the way I express myself to the world. I got a lot of stupid tattoos. I've gotten tattoos of stupid things that I should be ashamed of. But every little thing about me, I've had to learn to love. I have learned to embrace. Most of my tattoos are actually pretty meaningful. And I've always wanted piercings and tattoos. That's why I was so stupid at 14 and let my brother's friend give me a basement tat and did it on my back. And I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know what the fuck it was going to look like until afterwards. I thought I was the coolest kid. And now I'm working on covering it up. I've had to come to this point where the more comfortable I am with myself and the more comfortable I am with my appearance and expressing myself in that way, the more my mom has no choice but to be okay with it. She can absolutely disapprove of how I choose to express myself through my hair, my makeup, my tattoos, the way I dress, but she has no choice but to accept it. I used to not be the type of girl that cared to ever get her nails done, but now it's become part of my self-care. It is something that I do prioritize. It is something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy expressing myself through my nails and the designs and the art. And one thing about growing up was I never failed to hear these words from anyone who's ever known my father. Everyone would always tell me that I resembled him so much. And I actually still hear that to this day. And anytime people see me and realize that I am his daughter, they're like, I see it. You look just like him. And so it was difficult sometimes growing up when the woman that you looked up to and the woman that you aspired to be like is your mother. And she would always tell me how much I just would resemble my father in every single way, even the way that I act, how free-spirited I can be sometimes. And until recently, I cut my hair into a shag cut a couple months ago. And the way that I had it styled, I was like, oh my God, I look just like my mother. And I think I was with my mom and my sister, and we were just talking about how I looked so much like her. And she was like, good, finally. I was getting afraid that you were never going to look anything like me. And I was like, oh, interesting. I don't know if that was a compliment or, I don't know, maybe that was just a backhanded compliment from her. Because I don't think I'm ugly. I think I'm very beautiful. Even though I look like my daddy, I think I am very beautiful. And no offense, but I think I'm the best looking sibling in my whole family. But getting my nails done is also, I think I have, this is so random, but I think I have really beautiful hands. And I get that compliment often. And not to brag, but I've always been privileged with long, beautiful, strong nails. And every time I look at my hands, I see my mom because I have her hands. And I was blessed and given these beautiful hands from her. And every time I see a new little beauty mark or freckle, I think of my mother. And I think of how much she used to hate her mole and how much she used to hate her beauty marks and freckles and how she has beauty marks and freckles all over her. And although my complexion is more like my father's, I have those beauty marks and freckles in some areas of my face, some areas of my body. I think some of my favorite freckles are actually the ones on my lips. And I used to hate those. I used to hate my beauty marks. I used to hate my freckles. But now I've grown to love them so much because those are one of the few things that I believe I get from my mother, appearance-wise. And so it's made me love them more. I also have a birthmark on my right wrist or my right hand. And I used to hate it. Kids used to call me like a cheetah. And now it's like one of my favorite things about me. It's one of my favorite identifiers. You can tell who I am by my hand. And all of these small things that I used to take for granted because they were things that I watched my mother hate about herself. I've learned to grow to love those imperfections. My little mole on my head, I love it. I remember actually trying to cut my mole off when I was a kid. I know, crazy. And so as I'm working through and I'm learning to heal and learning to love myself more and more, as I think about having children in my future, especially a daughter, I hope to attain a level of self-love that just exudes onto my daughter. I want to love myself so much that it inspires my daughter to love herself just as much and more. Every little imperfection that I have, every little imperfection that she might have, I want her to love those things about herself, and I want her to find the beauty in those things. And I hope one day that I am lucky and blessed enough to be able to dress her up in my traditional clothing. I hope that I'm lucky enough and blessed enough to share those experiences with her and to teach her these things. I consider those privileges in life. And those have not always viewed those things as privileges in life. As I've grown up with a mother who has resented her decision to have children, it doesn't necessarily hurt me that she resents making the decision to have children. I feel more hurt that her resentment has created a level of fear that I carry about settling down, about having children, about allowing people to love me. And that is my personal goal right now, to overcome those things and to be better and allowing myself to have a healthier relationship with my femininity. It is a personal achievement for me to be more loving on myself as a woman. And so here I am in my traditional clothing, with my non-traditional makeup, with my non-traditional hair, with my non-traditional tattoos. But this is me. This is my version of a modern day Lao woman. So I hope that this Get Ready With Me, this episode, has given you guys more perspective of who I am and how much I love my cultural history, my cultural background, and how much of it really ties into and intertwines with how I identify in the world as a woman. So I hope that I have a healthier relationship with myself and my relationship as a woman in this world, and accepting the flaws that I have will be a huge change in how comfortable I am with being a woman, and still honoring the history that comes with being a Laotian woman, being a Hmong woman. So thank you guys again for tuning in to another episode. Please make sure you follow along everywhere on TikTok and Instagram, as well as the YouTube channel. It's Suffering of Silence Pod. And make sure you leave some comments, some reviews, and hopefully you guys like this little format that I've given you guys this week. I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for being subscribers.